All right. So, redemption. This is a two-part episode, but I'm going to do both parts of it as a single entity because of the fact that it's really just a 2-hour story. And it's not actually like two different things. There's a beginning of the story and an end of the story, and those have fundamental variations in them, some of which is actually very noteworthy, but it's all just one story. So, the beginning of the story is rather simple. Certain people in the Klingon Empire are trying to overthrow the current chancellor. Gowron has been chancellor for however long, and now the House of Duras has managed to get support of enough of the other houses to challenge Gowron as chancellor. And this feud between Duras and for trying to control the empire is huge. And as it turns out, the Duras family has been getting help from the Romulans in their efforts, so that Duras is richer than they should be, and thus more influential than they should be because of the fact that, well, the Romulans are sponsoring them in the hope of overthrowing the Klingon Federation peace treaty. Because the Romulans know that Duras isn't a fan of being allies of the Federation and feels that the Klingon Empire would be better off at war with the Federation. And that's why the Romulans have decided to covertly sponsor House Duras. Now, that is something that, what's the best way to put this? Gets messy because of the fact that the whole thing is covert. The the Duras family has been building their power base for years, covertly putting in place things that they shouldn't have in order to overthrow the other houses that are currently in control. Well, see, Picard's crew's role in this is that some of the Klingons ask Worf specifically to help them with that. And if the Romulans are in fact involved, which yes, they absolutely are, that makes it no longer internal Klingon politics. See, Picard at first declines to get involved because, again, if it's actually internal Klingon politics and it's just the Klingons deciding who should rule their empire, then the Federation has no reason to have a say in the matter. If that is in fact the case, then the Klingons deciding that they no longer wish to be part of the Treaty of Alliance is simply business as usual. But as we all know, out of universe, yeah, Sela is involved with this whole thing, and General Movar is one of the people assisting Sela with the efforts to have House Duras upset the balance. Now, for this kind of a story, I would definitely have the players in the story as Captain Picard's crew. Now, in this story, one of the things that's interesting is that various members of Captain Picard's crew end up on different ships because, well, a lot of plot happens. This is one of those things that's a two-part episode because a lot of plot happens. Um, One of those is that Worf ends up on a, a Klingon ship with Kern, if I remember right. Yeah, Kern's ship, the Hegta. Worf ends up on the Hegta, and the whole tachyon detection grid thing has the infamous scene where um, Data decides that it's better to have his crew get radiation poisoning than to fail his mission. And Data's like, "Oh no, I did a bad thing," and Picard's like, I would have done the same thing except without hesitating." Yeah, Data as a commanding officer is a bit weird because of the fact that Data tries to be a stickler for protocol, but doesn't pay attention to the fact that his subordinates are just doing the same thing he would do. Oh, that got strange. However, that's one of those like character moment things, I guess you could say. It's like having someone, act out a character and then be like, do things that only make sense because this is what this character would do. Chris Briner did a great job with that. At any rate, though, the tachyon detection grid is used as a way to counteract the effect of Romulan cloaking technology, which is one of those things where, as a plot point, the Romulans are carefully, methodically working to improve their cloaks. So the methods that were used to detect Romulan cloaking devices in TOS don't work in TNG. You need different methods. And the tachyon detection grid is one of them. It won't, cause the cloak to drop, but it will make something notable so that you can see that there's a ship there. And thus, it creates a barrier that Romulan ships can't pass through without being detected. Now, this is one of those things where, from an out of universe perspective, you have to question why no one in a Star Trek setting would have the equivalent of a perimeter fence that has this sort of technology already. Given what they had to put together in order to make this work in this particular incident, I would say that the actual explanation for that is the cost. Creating a perimeter fence around a specific solar system to detect cloak ships entering and leaving a specific solar system, doable. An entire sector of space, though, nah, no, no, too expensive. And anyway, so the plot. Other than what we talked to before, it's like this is an episode that focuses very, very heavily on Klingon politics. Because, as I said, it's like the core aspect of this is Duras trying to, as a house, overthrow the current status quo in the Klingon Empire. And they're getting Romulan help to do this. And the fact that the other Klingon houses don't know that the House Duras is being assisted by the Romulans is a major plot point. Something that is legitimately something that when it gets made public enough of the other houses uh, renounce public support for Duras that Duras's attempt is a failure because of the fact that the House leaders know that while their political ambitions would tell them to just do it anyways, they know that enough people in their house would disagree with them to try to kick them out of their position as house leader if they chose to continue with the course of supporting Duras, which is the whole like public uh, perception of being an honorable Klingon comes into play. Right, all of the houses that are supporting Duras need to keep up appearances, whether they actually want to or not. They don't want to look like collaborators with the Romulans because accusing the House of Moog of collaborating with Romulans is what forced Worf to accept this commendation in the first place. And revealing that House Duras is in fact collaborating with Romulans is a major stain on their public image and something that the majority of Klingons are unwilling to accept. Thus, that reveal, when it finally happens, is something that is a very, very big deal. Of course, something like that requires a whole lot of proof, and that's the reason for the tachyon detection grid and why they had to have that much work to find Romulan ships. Mm-mm. Anyway, though, so the basic gist of this, though, is like you would have your players doing stuff related to like trying to talk to various political figures in order to get them to do stuff. Because again, it's like Picard's role in this is not to directly oppose Sela or Duras. Worf goes rogue a bit and hangs out with Kern for most of the episode. However, he's still doing the Worf thing and, doing his best to be an honorable Klingon and acting like a Federation officer, even though he spouts Klingon phrases. And that's actually one of the things that's most notable about this is that this is one of those episodes that really, really drives home the point that what Worf believes to be true about Klingon honor is a fairy tale. And that in actual practice, at least in terms of political um, capital, honor is really just public perception. Duras's family needs to have the public perception of being honorable Klingons, and thus people of in good standing in the High Council. I mean, in reality, they're Romulan collaborators and have been for over 20 years, but they can't make that public without having other people refuse to support them. So they hide that and lie to everyone. They lied and tell everyone that it was actually the House of Moog that were the traitors that made the Kittimer massacre possible, even though the House of Moog were the ones who got massacred. Well, having Worf be the only surviving one means that there are no living witnesses. Yay. How convenient. And this is actually a big thing, though. And one thing that's important to remember when doing Klingon politics. Ronald Reagan himself compared Klingon politics to the U.S. Uh, Chamber of Congress. Yeah, Ronald Reagan. Uh, yeah, that got interesting. Anyway, though, honestly, though, this is basically the quintessential episode for looking at to decide what you want to do if you want to do Klingon politics related stuff because it's one of the things that has the deepest, heaviest dive into it in the earlier episodes. Later stuff in DS9 and the later seasons of TNG also touches on it, but like this one goes really, really heavy into just what it takes to make a situation like a Klingon civil war even possible. And the House Duras trying to take over the Empire, that was a big deal. And when they got revealed to be Romulan uh, allies, uh, everything goes to pot. But Picard needed to find some heavy, serious proof that the Romulans were helping the Dross. He couldn't do circumstantial evidence. Now, one thing that's noteworthy is that in previous episodes, we have actually seen more than one occasion of a Klingon acting as a Romulan conspirator. That's happened more than once. And so it's a recurring thing because in TOS, the Romulans and Klingons were allied against the Federation. Having the Klingons be allies of the Federation is a major status quo change and something that's only been true for a short period of time. The Klingons were enemies of the Federation far longer than they've been allies, and a lot of people in the Klingon Empire are unhappy with that. And the Romulans also would prefer it to be the other way. And this means that there are, in fact, quite a few people in the Klingon Empire who would rather be allies of the Romulans than the Klingons. Or Federation, sorry. And that is a huge deal. And why this whole like Romulan collaborator thing is a recurring plot element is the simple fact that not all Klingons are on board with the Treaty of Alliance with the Federation. And that's something to remember when writing Klingon politics in a TTRPG. There's a lot of Klingons who would rather be at war with the Federation than their allies. And I think I'll leave it there. This episode had a whole lot of stuff in it, and it boils down to a rather simple idea. But that simple idea, when taken to its logical conclusion, 2-hour episode. Alrighty then. Well, see you guys later.